share, recipe share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share. Recipe Share, Recipe Share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share, a show on AADL TV where we take a few minutes to talk about recipes from a featured category. Today's category is better as leftovers. So Katie, tell us about your recipe.
All right, so the recipe that I have chosen today is from my mother-in-law. So this recipe is for mini meatloaves. And I know that meatloaf is a very traditional better as leftovers recipe. People know that that's usually better the second day, but this recipe is specifically meant to create leftover portions. So it's a pretty basic meatloaf recipe. It's got ground beef, eggs, Worcestershire sauce, bread, seasoning, and then you make a sauce out of ketchup, brown sugar, and ground mustard. And so you take some of the sauce and you mix it in with your beef mixture and you put it in large muffin tins and you bake it for 25 minutes and then you pull it out and you put the rest of the ketchup mixture as your topping on top of each of your little mini meatloaves, and then you put it back in the oven for 10 minutes and then take it out and you could eat it right then. And I've got a picture of how I sort of fancied it up with some parsley and made it look cute. But what I normally do and what my mother-in-law normally does is freeze it. So you just wait till the mini meatloaves have cooled and then you take them out and put them on a foil lined cookie sheet and then put them in the freezer until they've frozen solid. And then you wrap them each individually in a piece of aluminum foil and put the whole thing in a Ziploc bag and just throw it in the freezer. And then when you are ready to eat them as leftovers, what my mother-in-law does is she takes one out in the afternoon when she wants to have one for dinner, and you have to unwrap them while they're still frozen. Otherwise, you'll lose your delicious topping. So unwrap it, and she sets it on the counter and just lets it thaw until she's ready for dinner. Pop it in the microwave for 1 minute, and you have meatloaf. What I usually do is I'll take them out of the freezer and unwrap them and put them in a Tupperware the night before in my lunch bag for the next day. And then when I get to work, take them out and just pop them in the microwave for a minute. And I've usually got some to-go ketchup packets that I've hoarded. And so I'll just use that for dipping, and it's an awesome lunch. I have a picture of that too. And it's just such a wonderful, convenient thing to have in the freezer all the time. And I actually just recently ate my last two, so it's time for me to make this again. But that is mini meatloaves from my mother-in-law. I love this recipe.
That's super basic. That's exactly the topping that I've always used. I've made. It's not something I have put away in the freezer, which is a great idea.
I love that too, because I feel like sometimes making the concept of like a whole meatloaf seems kind of daunting to me in some ways, and also just kind of like odd, like a loaf of meat. But I think in like smaller portions, it makes a lot of sense. And like, you can probably even like, you could have like a side of veggies with it, or whatever. It just seems like a more like reasonable and like appetizing portion to me than like memories of my mom being like, here's meatloaf for dinner, and it's literally like a loaf of like a bread sized loaf of meat. And I remember just being like, is that right? So this sounds actually very yummy and appetizing to me.
Yeah, they're really cute. So it does make it a little bit nicer to eat. So I hope you try it. But Elizabeth, tell us what your better as leftovers recipe is.
Sure. So this is a new to me recipe that I tried out it said in the recipe that it was better as leftovers. So I was hoping that would be the case. And indeed, I agreed. It's from this cookbook I got from here. That's so good, or that sounds so good. Carla Lally Music. I really like her. I like her recipes. They're really fun and accessible. And this is one that, let me pull up the right page. It's called Lentils, Greens, and Marinated Feta. So it was really quick. Basically, you take some black lentils, you cook them accordingly. You take some feta, slice it on a plate, and then drizzle olive oil, red pepper flakes, and some herbs that you might have on hand on it. And then you braise some greens of your choice. I don't know if braise is the right word. You saute some greens of your choice with cayenne pepper and turmeric and a little more olive oil. And you make a easy dressing of apple cider vinegar, Dijon, and olive oil. And so basically, when the lentils are done, you drain them and you toss them with this dressing that you've made. You put them on a plate, and then you put some of this feta that you've been marinating kind of on top, and some greens as well. It was super good the night of, but Carla had said, like, this is going to be great. You should store it all together, you know, in a container for the next day, and the lentils will soak up more of the dressing. The feta will kind of like get some of it and marinate a little more, and the greens will just become more flavorful. I was a little skeptical because I feel like second day old sauteed greens, that's like never really been that great to me, but I tried it the next day and then the following day. So I had it for 2 days. It was excellent. The lentils really did get even more flavorful, and the feta got some of that. The lentils also got some of the olive oil and herbs from the feta, and the greens, like, they were soft, but they did not become like unpleasant. They just kind of also soaked up some of the other flavors. And I think the cayenne and turmeric really kept them tasting flavorful and almost fresh in a way, rather than just turning into mush. So I was super impressed. I took this for 2 days as leftovers for lunch, and I would absolutely do it again, make it again, especially the lentils part. I would use those and put other things with them, you know, in the summer, some sliced tomatoes and like basil or whatever. That was really, really good. So yeah, super simple. It takes like 20 minutes. The longest part is cooking the lentils, but it was great. And I really liked how she offered some substitutions here. Like, if you don't have black lentils, you could use green lentil, and like some other things. She said, oh, try it with halloumi. Or if you don't have Swiss chard, like, you could use kale or spinach. Anyway, I kind of like that kind of when they offer substitutions. So that was my better as leftovers from That Sounds So Good.
Well, that sounds so good.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. I love that she offered the substitutions, because as soon as you started talking about it, I'm like, all right, do you have to use black lentils? Because I just have green. That's awesome. And then the different kinds of greens. So you used Swiss chard like in the recipe? Okay.
I did, but I actually threw in some spinach as well, because I had some that I wanted to use up, and it was completely fine. And I think kale would be great with it. So really flexible, definitely something a little heartier, but you know, it was great. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
That does sound good. Really.
Cool. Well, Beth, do you want to share with us?
I do, and I'm very excited to share this with you, because this is a recipe that I have the actual recipe that I got when I was like about 32 years old, and I had 2 small children, and it came in the magazine for my insurance, you know, health insurance. So what caught my eye at the time was Healthy Recipes for the Chronically Busy. So it was just a page in this newsletter, and it's a basic ratatouille. And it's really critical that when you're making a ratatouille, in this case, you use whatever you have. I mean, for me, it always includes eggplant and onion and garlic, and then peppers, and you know, but you know, this one calls for green peppers. I mean, well, green pepper, I don't ever use green pepper. For green beans too, and wax beans, and you know, you can throw in mushrooms, whatever you got. The beauty of this, though, is that there are a variety of stew variations that you can use. So I've got tons of pictures of the setup when I make this ratatouille, and then I freeze a bunch of it. So I've got 2-cup, containers in my freezer. And the stew variations are, so just for an example, a couple nights ago, we had the tacos. So there's, with the taco idea, you take your basic stew, add beans. They said pinto beans, I used black beans, some salsa, cumin. I didn't add vinegar, I don't think, but, and then you serve it in taco shells and add cheese and lettuce and all that. Again, I have another picture because I went ham on this one. And over the years, so think about it, this is like every summer I make a bunch of ratatouille, and then sometimes throughout the year, if I see eggplant on sale or something, I'll just go, yeah, I think I could just make one of those. So that you could add it to your spaghetti sauce. Other variations though, Caribbean shrimp. So you take the stew, a sliced banana, curry powder, shrimp, put it on rice and turmeric. One with pine nuts, red or white wine vinegar, chopped basil, parsley, serve over pasta. There's so many ways to use it. It has been honestly a lifesaver throughout the raising of our family, and now with just Curtis and me, if we're ever stuck, just like I'm just taking out the ratatouille and I'll figure out what we're having later. And if there's one recipe I would want to impart on to my friends, it would be this, because it's been such a huge use of, it's been so useful for us in our household, and I think it would be for you. I was really wanting to share it with you this summer when all this stuff was plentiful, but anyway, that's my recipe, and I appreciate you letting me share that because it's really sentimental.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Beth. How long does the initial, because I feel like historically when I've heard of ratatouille, it can be like a 9-hour process. I assume that's not this version.
This says 20 minutes, about 20 minutes. And if you want to freeze it, you want to, you don't want things to get mushy. So you let them be not fully cooked. You know what I mean? But like, tender. So this is called for celery. I don't always put celery or carrots, but really it's whatever you have. It can be as little as just eggplant, onions, mushrooms, and zucchini, whatever, just to be able to throw it in your freezer. Or sometimes I don't make enough to put in the freezer, but yeah, so that's my recipe.
Is there some sort of broth or stock that you put in?
No, because the vegetables all, make
Okay.
and then, but a 28-ounce can of tomatoes.
Okay.
This
Gotcha.
this calls for, I realized it's not they use ground peeled tomatoes. I've used whole tomatoes and squish them up. I've used crushed, whatever.
Yeah.
I've used fresh tomatoes. So
So versatile. It sounds great.
Yeah, I love it.
Mhm.
good.
I can't wait to try that one.
Good. I hope you do, and I hope that it takes you into your 60s as well. So, well, that is, I think, wraps it up if you don't have any other comments. But, and so thank you for watching Recipe Share. Be sure to click the link below to look at the event page on AADL.org and find the recipes that we talked about today and share your own in the comments. Join us next time when we'll be talking about recipes that are energy boosters. We are looking forward to seeing what you've been making, and thanks for sharing.
Recipe share, share a little